They want you to believe it's about saving the planet. They preach about melting ice caps and dying polar bears, their voices dripping with concern. They demand sacrifice, all in the name of a greener, cleaner future. But don't be fooled. This isn't about the environment. It's about power. It's about control. It's about a new world order crafted in the shadows and imposed on the unsuspecting masses. This is the Green Gambit. At the heart of this grand deception stands Mark Carney, the golden boy of global finance. He returns to Canada draped in accolades, hailed as a visionary. He's the former governor of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. But beneath that polished veneer lies a more sinister truth. Carney is not the savior he pretends to be. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing, a corporate puppet master. It's like we're living in a James Bond movie. But Carney's gospel is simple. You must consume less, earn less, and own less. You must accept a lower standard of living for the sake of the planet. You must hand over your hard-earned money in the form of carbon taxes and green levies. They will decide how you live, what you drive, and how much you are allowed to consume. They will tell you it's about saving the planet, but it's not. It's about control. It's about reshaping the world in their image. Carney's rise to climate sainthood is a carefully crafted illusion. Born in Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, he could have been just another face in the Canadian crowd. But Carney's ambitions were always grander. After a stint at the University of Regina and a Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford, he landed at Goldman Sachs. He became a citizen of the world, a member of a transnational elite who answered to no flag, no nation, only to the cold, hard logic of profit. This nation is just like a corporate entity for him to run. After his time at Goldman Sachs, Carney moved through a revolving door of prestigious positions. Each role carefully chosen, each move strategically calculated. But while Carney preached the gospel of sustainability, he was busy securing his own future at Brookfield Asset Management. Brookfield is not in the business of saving the planet, it's in the business of making money. Brookfield, like any self-respecting corporate predator, has a dirty little secret: Bermuda. This tiny island nation is where Brookfield parks billions of dollars, sheltered from the prying eyes of tax collectors and regulators. Carney, the supposed champion of transparency and accountability, is now a key player in this shadowy game. Remember those carbon taxes you were told are essential to saving the planet? Some of that money might just end up in a Brookfield account in Bermuda. This is the hypocrisy at the heart of the Green Gambit. They demand sacrifice while they feast at the trough of greed. Remember that cozy little tax haven we mentioned? Well, it seems our climate crusader has a bit of a soft spot for Bermuda. Brookfield, under Carney's watchful eye, has stashed a cool $25 billion in that island hideaway. That money is safely locked away in a web of offshore accounts and shell corporations. And Carney, the man who lectures us about climate justice, is right there in the thick of it. While Carney's corporate cronies are busy playing financial hide-and-seek in Bermuda, Back in the real world, working class Canadians are paying the price. Take the miners of Elliott Lake, Ontario, men who toiled for decades in the uranium mines. Carney's Brookfield also dabbles in insurance, and one of their subsidiaries, Industrial Alliance, has been fighting tooth and nail to deny these miners the compensation they deserve. Men like Kenneth Phillips, who died of lung cancer after being denied coverage for life-saving medication. But it's not just miners who are feeling the brunt of Carney's green policies. Across Canada, families are being priced out of their homes, driven out of their communities. It's called renoviction. And it's the latest tactic in Brookfield's playbook for maximizing profits. They gut the buildings, slap on a fresh coat of green paint, and jack up the rent. The families who once called these buildings home are left to fend for themselves. They end up crammed into overcrowded apartments, living paycheck to paycheck or worse on the streets. This is the reality behind the glossy brochures and the empty promises. This is the Green Gambit, and it's time we called it what it is, a con job of epic proportions.
Pieces in investing and therefore having the ownership of an insurance company is kind of...
Carney's green disciples like to talk a big game about sustainable development and inclusive growth. They'll tell you that carbon taxes are necessary to save the planet, but they forget to mention that those taxes hit the poor and working class the hardest. They'll preach about the evils of fossil fuels, conveniently ignoring the fact that those same fuels heat our homes, power our industries, and fuel our economy. The truth is, Carney and his ilk couldn't care less about the little guy. They're too busy sipping champagne at Davos, rubbing shoulders with billionaires. Don't believe for a second that Carney's green agenda is about protecting the environment. The man who claims to champion sustainability is perfectly happy to see Canadian farmers driven to ruin. Carney's allies in the World Economic Forum have been pushing for radical changes to agricultural practices. They call it sustainable agriculture, but in reality, it's a recipe for disaster. These globalist green warriors have never had to worry about where their next meal is coming from. They advocate for plant-based diets, ignoring the fact that not everyone can afford to eat like a Silicon Valley billionaire. Remember those rolling blackouts in California, those energy shortages in Europe? That's a glimpse into the future Carney and his fellow travelers have planned for us. They want to wean us off reliable, affordable fossil fuels and force us onto an energy diet of unreliable wind and solar power. They'll tell you it's about saving the planet, but it's really about control. Imagine a Canada where you can't afford to heat your home in the winter, where rolling blackouts are a regular occurrence. This isn't about saving the planet. It's about control. It's about power. It's about a new world order where the global elite, with Carney as their frontman, dictate the terms of our existence. They want to control what we eat, what we drive, how we heat our homes. But Canadians are not sheep. We will resist their green tyranny. It's not a conspiracy theory when it's happening right in front of your eyes. Carney isn't some lone wolf howling at the moon. He's a high-ranking member of a very exclusive club, a cabal of global elites who've appointed themselves the saviors of humanity. They call themselves the Glasgow Financial Alliance, for net zero, or GFANZ for short. Don't let the name fool you. This is a cartel, plain and simple. a financial behemoth with tentacles reaching into every corner of the global economy. These self-proclaimed masters of the universe see climate change not as a crisis, but as an opportunity. An opportunity to hit the reset button on the global economy. They call it the Great Reset, and it's nothing short of a hostile takeover. They talk about a greener, more equitable future, but what they really mean is a future where you own nothing, have no privacy, and have very little say in how you live your life. They'll track your every move, monitor your carbon footprint, and punish you for daring to step outside their carefully constructed green grid. The price of admission. And what's the price of admission to this brave new world, this green utopia ruled by benevolent technocrats? Your freedom, your prosperity, your future. They'll tell you that sacrifices must be made, that we must all do our part to combat climate change. But the sacrifices they demand are always one-sided. It's the working class, the families struggling to make ends meet, who are expected to bear the brunt of their green policies. Meanwhile, the elites, the ones who created this mess in the first place, they'll continue to jet around the world in their private planes, to vacation on their private islands, to consume resources at an unsustainable rate. They'll preach about the evils of consumption while they gorge themselves on the fruits of your labor. They'll demand that you tighten your belt while they loosen theirs. The Canadian connection. And where does Canada fit into all of this? We're the cash cow, the resource-rich nation, ripe for the picking. They look at our vast forests, our pristine lakes, our abundant energy reserves, and they see dollar signs. They see a nation they can exploit, a people they can manipulate. And they're using Carney, their golden boy, their Trojan horse, to sell us their agenda. They'll tell us it's about saving the planet, about creating a more sustainable future. But it's really about control. It's about power. It's about transforming Canada into a vassal state of the global elite, a playground for their green fantasies, a laboratory for their social experiments. The resistance rises. But here's the thing about Canadians. We don't scare easily. We're a hardy bunch, forged in the crucible of a harsh climate and a challenging landscape. We've stared down tyrants before, and we've always emerged victorious. And we're not about to let some smooth-talking globalist and his corporate cronies dictate our future. Across this land, from the fishing villages of the Atlantic to the lumber camps of British Columbia, a resistance is brewing. People are waking up to the truth, realizing that they've been sold a bill of goods, that the green utopia promised by Carney and his ilk is nothing more than a gilded cage. They're tired of being lectured about their carbon footprint while the elites continue to pollute with impunity. They're tired of being told to tighten their belts while the rich get richer. They're tired of being treated like pawns in a global game of chess, their lives and livelihoods sacrificed on the altar of corporate greed, and they're starting to fight back.
We saw those conflicts play out when he refused to remove Paul Chang, a liberal candidate who had said...
The people's champion. In the heart of this burgeoning resistance stands Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. Unlike Carney, a creature of the globalist establishment, Pierre is a man of the people. He understands the struggles of everyday Canadians because he's lived them. He knows what it's like to worry about paying the bills, to see your purchasing power eroded by inflation, to feel like the deck is stacked against you. Pierre isn't afraid to call out the hypocrisy of the green elite, to expose their agenda for what it is, a power grab disguised as environmentalism. He doesn't mince words. He doesn't apologize for standing up for Canadian jobs and Canadian families. He's a fighter, a champion for the little guy, and he's not backing down from this fight. He sees the pain inflicted by skyrocketing energy prices, the despair of families struggling to put food on the table, the anger of workers betrayed by a system that seems rigged against them. And he's offering a message of hope, a vision of a Canada where hard work is rewarded, where families can thrive, and where the government works for the people, not the other way around. A new dawn for Canada. The battle lines are drawn. On one side, we have Carney and his globalist liberal cronies, the same ones who orchestrated these horrible living conditions, the architects of the Great Reset, the self-proclaimed saviors of humanity, who would rule us from their climate-controlled boardrooms. On the other side, we have Pierre and the growing legion of Canadians who are saying, enough is enough, who are standing up for their freedoms, their livelihoods, and their future. This isn't just a political battle. It's a battle for the soul of Canada. Will we succumb to the siren song of globalism, surrendering our sovereignty and our prosperity to a shadowy cabal of unelected bureaucrats and corporate elites? Or will we chart our own course, embracing our potential as a free and independent nation, a beacon of hope in a world increasingly shrouded in darkness? The choice before us. The choice is ours. We can continue down the path laid out for us by Carney and his ilk, a path that leads to economic ruin, social upheaval, and the loss of our most cherished freedoms. Or we can choose a different path, a path that leads to a brighter future, a future where Canada stands tall on the world stage, a beacon of freedom, prosperity, and opportunity, like we have always been before the last decade. The time for complacency is over. The time for action is now. The future of Canada hangs in the balance. Use your common sense. Choose wisely. We've laid bare the truth about the Green Gambit, peeled back the layers of deception to expose the raw greed and lust for power that fuels this globalist agenda. We've seen how Carney and his ilk, these self-proclaimed saviors of humanity, are using the specter of climate change to enrich themselves at our expense. How they're rigging the system in their favor while preaching about shared sacrifice and social justice. We've heard the stories of Canadians, hardworking men and women, families struggling to make ends meet, whose lives have been upended by these reckless policies, sacrificed on the altar of a green utopia that exists only in the fevered imaginations of the elite. The time for talk is over. The time for polite debate, for reasoned discourse, for trying to find common ground with those who would sell our future down the river, that time is past. They've shown their true colors, revealed their hand, and it's time we called their bluff. They want to fight? Let's give them one they'll never forget. The Globalist Project, this grand scheme to subsume national sovereignty under the banner of a one-world government, has always been a top-down affair. It's a project conceived in the halls of academia, nurtured in the boardrooms of multinational corporations, and implemented by unelected bureaucrats and their political puppets. It's a project that relies on deception, on convincing the masses that their best interests lie in surrendering their freedoms, their prosperity, their very way of life to a select few who claim to know better. But the globalist illusion is crumbling. People are waking up to the fact that this emperor has no clothes. They're seeing through the propaganda, the fear-mongering, the empty promises of a greener, more equitable future. They're realizing that the real agenda is control, that the goal is to create a world where the few rule the many, where dissent is silenced, and where the human spirit is crushed under the weight of 1,000 regulations. Canada is not their playground. This land, this vast and bountiful land, it was built by generations of Canadians who understood the value of hard work, self-reliance, and freedom. It was built by pioneers who braved unforgiving wilderness, by farmers who toiled from dawn till dusk, by miners who extracted wealth from the earth, by entrepreneurs who took risks and created jobs. It was built on a foundation of individual liberty, limited government, and free markets. This is our inheritance, our birthright, and we will not let them take it from us. We will not let them turn Canada into a vassal state of the global elite, a playground for their green fantasies, a laboratory for their social experiments. We will fight for our freedoms, for our families, for our future. We will reclaim our sovereignty, rebuild our economy, and restore Canada to its rightful place as a beacon of hope and prosperity in the world. This is a call to speak. To all Canadians who still believe in the promise of this great nation, it's time to stand up, to speak out, to make our voices heard. Show your voice with your ballot. It's time to reject the politics of fear and division, the politics of envy and resentment, the politics of globalism and elitism. It's time to embrace the politics of hope, the politics of opportunity, the politics of freedom. The future of Canada is in our hands. Let's make it a future worthy of our ancestors, a future we can be proud to pass on to our children and grandchildren. Let's show the world that Canada will not be cowed, will not be bought, will not be broken. Let's show them what it means to be truly Canadian.